I do want to get Jake's thoughts in the end, hear what he has to say about how the Browns maybe handle these upcoming decisions, these looming decisions about the direction of the organization. We also got John Greco coming up at 8. We'll pick his brain on those things. But I think, would be remiss if we didn't go this direction next, Jake, because Ken and Lama yesterday, at the end of the show, got into an impassioned conversation about, we just talked about what that win maybe means for Kevin Stefanski, and I think there's maybe some true power in that for a coach who's trying to save his job. They got into a very passionate debate about what this win potentially could mean for the Browns from a standpoint of culturally changing things here in Cleveland. And listen, I get where this conversation comes from. You beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's your biggest rival. Fan base gets all juiced up off of that. The locker room gets juiced up off of that. It's a division rival that you're beating. Like, that's all good things. It could be, I can see why you would think it could be a tone-setting win for the organization. Ken and Lima saw it very differently. I want to play their comments, and I kind of hope we have different opinions on this, because boy, oh boy, could we have some fun with this one. Here's what Ken and Lima said about it yesterday.
That's not a culture win. You don't know nothing about teamwork. You don't know nothing about being accountable to anybody else.
Was it
so of course it wouldn't be culture for you.
Was it a cultural win when Deshaun Watson slugged through that game against
don't try
Washington?
To sit there and find a bunch of different
Washington
things.
On January 1st, where he threw for 140,
it wasn't that.
169 yards. They got a game ball.
So you're just going to think of every sloppy win and say it's a culture.
Game?
It's not a culture win. You gave me specific examples.
So desperate to call anything a win late in the season that we want things to make us feel good about an otherwise disastrous year.
I know that you hate everything, and so you don't want anybody to have any let up on anything.
I do hate this season, yes.
Yes, I know you do.
Me.
You've made that abundantly clear.
Guilty as charged, Your Honor.
So much that
So
much so that you will find different excuses so you don't have to go to a Browns game and sit with the fans.
I don't think
much that you hate sitting with the fans. You don't want to be seen with them.
I don't think I need a bunch of reasons to act like 4-13, which is probably going to be their final record. To act like they have turned it around. They've turned the corner.
So they beat the Steelers walking around like they were doing against the Chicago Bears?
What do you mean?
So
I thought Shador tried to gift them the game in the second half. They didn't take it.
But they didn't. So they didn't. And the defense could have just went, you know what, that's it.
The defense was awesome.
We're committing stupid turnovers, that's it.
The defense was amazing.
So again, tell me where that's not a culture win.
The defense has been amazing. Last year they were amazing. This year they were amazing. That didn't change the culture of the team.
They weren't amazing last year, actually.
They had a bunch of
they
had some of the best DVOA games last year. I've seen the stats. I've seen all the numbers.
you gotta love when Lima gets Ken worked into his shoe. Listen, I appreciated the conversation, and I understand again where the argument comes from that, well, hey, this could really be a tone setter for the organization. This could turn things around for us. I'm gonna be honest, Jake. And this is no disrespect to guys in that locker room, because I know like they talk this way. They talk about like these wins matter, and Joel Bitonio I thought gave a really enlightening answer on there's young guys on this team that haven't experienced a lot of winning this year. Every win counts for them because they're trying to establish a new culture for the organization. I'm not saying that like the young guys aren't the future and that they do need to see winning and that it can matter from that standpoint, but do I think that all of a sudden a December 28th win over the Pittsburgh Steelers is going to be the difference between this team like going to the playoffs now next year, and that this is the catalyst for them changing things around? Just being totally blunt and honest here, no, I do not. I don't see how that. I don't see how this even like drags through the offseason, like how this carries over to next year when we're talking about a team, Jake, that could be firing their coach and maybe their GM in, 6 days from now? Like, how can I believe that this is going to change things when there's going to be so much change that if they do turn things around, I will not be pointing back to that game as the big catalyst, because this game does the opposite of like invoking those changes. That's a win that maybe saves the current regime's job. Like, this regime that's in power right now, they are who they are. The culture that's here is the culture that's here. We know enough about them at this point to understand like they've had plenty of opportunity for cultural wins. It hasn't come. They're a 4-win football team this year. The only thing that's going to change about this team that could change the culture, potentially, is that they either A, find their franchise quarterback, or it's Shador and he takes the reins from here and goes, or they clean house or start fresh with somebody else, and a new coach comes in and that changes the culture. But it's not going to be because they beat the Steelers on December 28th in 2025.
Spencer, they've beat the Steelers for 4 straight seasons in a game at home, and yet we still walk away every single year being like, oh, this team doesn't know how to win. They don't know how to consistently put together. They've beaten them 4 times, and it's been 6 of the last 7 times of home games against the Pittsburgh Steelers they've won. They haven't lost 7 of the last 8. 7 of the last, It was either wins or a tie from 2018. They've only lost 1 of the last 8 matchups at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, did I look at Week 12 last year against the Pittsburgh Steelers in a Snow Bowl being like, man, what a culture win? Like, no, I watched Jameis Winston play a really fun game and make snow angels, and I was like, wow, this is fun, but this season sucks.
The culture here is you need the snow to help you win. That's what it is.
And let me tell you, that hasn't worked for a long time either. Weather has not also helped you in a long time.
So much so that they're building a dome because that's the culture.
But, like, I can't sit here. Like, I love, and is it more of a maybe culture win than it was last year? Because, sure, maybe Shedeur is the answer. Maybe you do have the quarterback in spot. Like, where, hey, he gets a little bit of a taste of you win an AFC North game.
Jameis wasn't the answer. For sure.
Right, yeah, like he was going to be gone after next year no matter what. You weren't actually bringing him back to play quarterback next year. That was never going to happen. But, so, like, does it help a little bit in that aspect to lead into that side of it? Maybe a little bit. But, like you said, at the same time, like, I can't sit here and act like, oh, well, they won this game, and all of a sudden now this creates a culture of winning because they know how to fight. I watch this team every single week. Lima hit it right at the end, I think. Like, this defense has continued to play hard. And the one thing I continue to give Kevin credit for, every single week, this team goes out and fights. At the same time, like, who won that game on Sunday? It's the defense. The defense won that game. Yeah. They held Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers to 6 points. The defense doesn't necessarily go out and fight for Kevin Stefanski as much as they scream to me they're fighting for Jim Schwartz. Right? Like, they play hard for Jim Schwartz and have for the last several years. Every single time, no matter what the offense looks like, the unit that Kevin's actually in charge of, the defense goes out there and performs. Like, I don't know how big of a change that is for Kevin that you're like, everybody's behind you. No, maybe they just really like Jim Schwartz, and Jim Schwartz has them playing, head over heels for themselves, basically. And I look at the offense you lost Harold Fannin after basically the first drive, and then the offense basically turned into the absolute goop. They just stopped playing well. Like, they were just a lord. They were stuck in the mud and couldn't move, and yet the defense still willed you to a win.
Yeah, I don't know how, like, did people wake up Monday and feel like they had an answer to the question, what is the Browns culture? You know what I mean? Like,
not even close.
That's
probably.
Because culture
probably
wins.
The same answer they've had for the last 2 years.
Because culture wins give you that answer. That's the thing for me. Lima started rattling off like all these random games, and Ken was making fun of him for it. Ken was like, you're just going to throw in any random, I like the word you use, goop, like any of these random goop wins that they've had over the years. Like, yeah, that's the point. It's like, we can go back in history and point to a number of games that we thought at the time this could really shift the organization's future. The best example was actually a win over the Steelers. The last week of the season in 2020 to clinch a playoff spot. You beat them at home. I know they had Backus playing, but you win that game, and then you go to their house, and you finally get a win in Pittsburgh for the first time in like 30,000 years. And it's like, those are culture. We thought those were culture wins. We thought back then that was changing the trajectory of the entire organization. Then they go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs in a playoff game, and we're all sitting here thinking like, oh, next year they're going to take that next leap. This team's going to be in the Super Bowl. Like, God forbid, like all of a sudden they figured it out. And then where did those 2 wins get the Browns? What did those 2 wins do for the culture to get them to the point where they're on the second year of winning likely 7 games in 2 seasons? Like, what are we talking about here? We did not get answers to that question, and that's the thing for me. When you see a culture win, I use this as an example. Last week, the Bears and the Packers. Bears were losing that game, and then in the fourth quarter, Caleb Williams pulls this thing out of his ass, threw that brilliant pass to DJ Moore for the touchdown, and he does the shiver thing. That felt like, I'm sure for Bears fans, a win that shifts the culture of an organization. That was like we have arrived, we can beat this team, this is your biggest rival on this stage, chance to win the division, which they've now done because the Packers lost this weekend. Like, that is the type of thing that feels like it could be a culture win. And to be clear, I use the example, that's what it felt like when they beat the Steelers in 2020 and then beat them in the playoffs again. That felt like a culture shift. Bears probably feel the same way after that win over the Packers. It's about what you do with it from here. If the Bears go out next year and they stink again, no one's going to think that was actually a culture win. But those are the wins that feel like culture wins. I did not wake up Monday and be like, you know what, because of this, now all of a sudden I feel like things are going to be different here in Cleveland. There's a lot that has to happen before I feel like things are going to be different here in Cleveland.
And for the culture to change, I don't even know. Like, I go back to what Lance Rosnoy says. Like, culture is one of the most overused words in sports because everyone likes to attach it to everything. Like, what does culture actually tell you? It tells you when you're down guys, when you have backups playing, that you get those players to buy into the scheme and play above the level that the name on the back of their jersey might represent at that current moment in time. Like, that's more of what culture means to me. Of like, no matter who's out there, and the Steelers sadly are a like perfect example of this, that they go out and put together a winning season every single year, despite the fact that they're playing Duck Hodges at quarterback and Mason Rudolph. Like, that is a winning culture. Sorry to break it to everybody else, they can't win in the playoffs, but it's a winning regular season culture. I'm looking at this offense right now, and like, sure, they are missing Quinshon Judkins, their entire offensive line. Harold Fanning goes down in that game. They find a way to pull out a win, but Spencer, you can't be oblivious to the fact that the offense just absolutely turned into nothing. And that's not against Kevin. That's not against everybody else. You didn't have the pieces. It's the expectation that the offense would turn into nothing. I mean, Shedeur was basically getting free rushers on him on every single play. He had almost nobody to throw the ball to, but like, those are the moments when in culture wins, the offense would step up and do something. Like, that is a culture coming through and being like, doesn't matter. You know, Sal Cannella is going to step up off the practice squad and look like a superstar today for no reason. Or somebody takes that step up. No, you just looked at the, basically Super Bowl caliber defense and went, oh, yeah, they played a lot better than the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, who was missing DK Metcalf, their top target, and Calvin Austin, probably their second most talented wide receiver as well.
All due respect to Ken Carman, because I know he's an excitable boy, and he was at the game on Sunday with Pony and Moeller, and they were sitting there, and he was smearing it in their faces that they were beating the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they win this football game. And I know when you're at the game, too, it makes it even more exciting when you're there to experience it and you feel good about things. But I think he's flat out got this wrong. I cannot look at that win on Sunday and be like, this is a culture win. We're 6 years into this thing. Kevin Stefanski and this staff have had plenty of time for culture wins. And as things stand right now, the results are the same. I just think there's too much that has to change before I feel like the culture's actually changed here. And that starts largely this offseason. It might start as soon as next week if they make a coaching change or whatever. But there's too much that has to change before I start talking about the team getting wins that have changed the culture or feeling like the culture's changed around that locker room.